So AutoCAD Mechanical has this powerful feature called structure, which is like taking lines, arcs, and circles and converting them into parts. So where I'm going to start is I'm on the View tab, and I'm going to turn on the mechanical browser, and we can see we've got some components already created. And another key here is that in the status bar, as I got mechanical structure turned on, which means that I'm able to use it and create parts. Now what I'm going to see right now is that notice that there's this gripper assembly, and this gripper assembly has a clamp, and that clamp has a front view and a top view. Now what's really cool here is let's take this. Notice that I select the line and it behaves like a line. However, if I click that line once and then click it again, I've actually selected the part. So now I've selected that clamp, and if I click it again, now I've selected the assembly that it's in. So you can see how it's kind of like this mix between blocks and groups. Now what I want to do is I want to take this component and I want to convert it to structure. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click in the browser here, and I'm going to create a new component. Now what's going to ask me for, it's going to ask for the name. It's going to ask for the name of the view. Now I'm going to select the components that I want to include. Where's the base point? And now what we can see is we've got this drive component created within the browser. Now what I'm going to do now is I'm going to right click on it because I don't want to create a new component, but I want to create a new component view because this is going to be the top view. And what it includes is it includes these components here. Again, we'll select the base point. So you can see it's a lot like creating blocks. And now I've created that component instance. Well, if we go to the annotate and we take a look at our bill of materials, and what I'm going to see is that within the bill of materials, notice I've got that gripper assembly, but notice that my drive component is already there. So just the simple fact of adding that component there has, added it to the bill of materials. Okay, now obviously these components are in the right place. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take them and just use regular, AutoCAD commands, and we'll insert this into the desired location. Obviously we'll have to apply a hide or, remove some geometry. We'll take this component. Okay, now what I've realized is that I don't really want this drive to be separate. It would be better to be part of that gripper assembly. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag it and drop it and add it to that gripper. Now what it's asking me to do is to associate the right views with the right gripper views. Now, just because it's the front view doesn't mean that it's going to go with the front of the assembly. Sometimes you might have the top and the front. In this case, it is pretty straightforward. It's just the front to the front and the top to the top. And I'm going to click OK. And now we can see that that drive component is part of that gripper assembly. If I right click on that gripper or that drive component, I go in there, what I can see now is that I have access to its properties. So perhaps the description here is going to be the gripper drive. We'll click OK. That information's now been set. And if we go take a look at our bill of materials, what we're going to see is that information has been updated. So we can see it's now part of this subassembly, and we can see the drive is in there. Now the description here, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to change the name, and we're going to say driver. And I'm actually going to remove the overrides, and it's going to go back to the component name, and that's just the way the property is set up. So the property is set up to pull in the drive. So you can see how you can do this kind of smart mapping to it. Okay, well now they've got the component, it's got its properties. I'm happy with the structure. Let's add some balloons. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do an auto ballooning. What we're going to see is those components are now selectable. Then I can go and place my balloons. Now let's go back into the bill of materials. And what I want to do is we actually want to set these numbers. So because I've got it expanded, we no longer want that to be 1. So I'm going to do a set. We're going to start at 1, step by 1, and change them because we don't necessarily want to show the gripper in this case. We want to show the components that are within that one, and notice how those balloons have automatically matched. Okay, we'll wrap this up by placing in a parts list. We can see it's pulled the same properties. Maybe we decided to not have the standard in there. We'll click OK, and we'll place our parts list. So you can see that structure is a way of adding these kind of smart block-like groups to lines, arcs, circles, and other shapes, and then have this, structure where you have these parts in their views, and you can start building these assemblies of components. So that's how you can use AutoCAD Mechanical Structure to define bill of materials and parts lists and then balloon your components.